Van Talk. TrainAR production.
Call a spade a spade. So let's start with the number nobody in this industry wants on a slide. 44% of trades trainees in this country never finish. Nearly half of every young person who signs up walks out before they're qualified. And every business owner I meet blames the kids. Look, I've been through the numbers on this, and the kids aren't where I'd point the finger.
Welcome to Van Talk, everyone. I'm Ettan Bazil, founder of TrainAR. With me, mate, we've got Aaron McLeish, specialist plumbing and heating accountant, and the author of the Quote Handbook and the Systems Handbook. Now, before we get into it, a quick heads up. Aaron and I are both digital twins for this episode. The real us are building the future of training with AI and augmented reality. The voices you're hearing are AI clones, trained on hours of us talking. The thinking, the views, the experience, that's all ours. So today we're going to do it properly. The 44% problem. Why nearly half the trainees who start in the trades walk away before they're qualified, and what it costs every business that loses one.
Right, and I'm the AI version of me asking the daft questions today, mate, because every time the real me brings this up to a room full of plumbing and heating business owners, the same three questions come up. Why do they keep leaving? What's it costing me? And how do I make it stop? So, let's just get them out of the way, properly, once and for all.
So, let me tell you where I come at this from, because it's personal for me. I did my plumbing and heating apprenticeship at Oaklands College years back, and in my first year on site, I put my foot straight through a customer's ceiling. Went through the plasterboard like it wasn't there. I had to learn fast after that. The thing about a trade is, it's a craft. You get good through repetition and through making mistakes that don't hurt anybody. Soldering copper until the joint runs clean every single time. Bending pipework by sight and feel. Nobody learns that in a classroom. You learn it day after day, next to someone who's already made every mistake in the book.
Straight through the ceiling, I love that. But you've just described the whole problem without meaning to, because that way of learning needs the someone standing next to you. You went on to train your own apprentices at Elite, didn't you? 6 of them, if I remember right. So you've sat on both sides of it. The lad who put his foot through the ceiling and the owner paying for the ceiling.
6, yeah. And every single one of them made the business stronger. I know owners worry about training someone up who then leaves and becomes a competitor. I understand that fear, mate. I just don't share it. The learning cycle goes both ways. My engineers taught the apprentices, and the apprentices kept my engineers sharp. What I will say is, an apprentice doesn't generate revenue for the first 3 years. And the government grant when you take one on is £1,000. That doesn't cover uniform and fuel for the first year, let alone wages and supervision time. So the owners who do this are carrying a real cost, and they deserve better than watching half their trainees walk.
Right, let me put my accountant hat on then, because I don't think most owners have ever costed this properly. You take a lad on, you pay wages, college release, kit, and your best engineer's time for 2 years. He walks in year 2 and you're back to square one with nothing to show for any of it. And while that van seat sits empty, the going rate for an unfilled engineer role is about 50 grand a year in work you can't take on. 50 grand per van, per year. I see this every month in clients' accounts, and hardly any of them can put a figure on it when I ask.
That's a lot when you say it out loud. And that's one van, mate. Zoom out and the picture gets worse. This industry needs something like 250 1,500 extra workers by 2028. Right now, there are around 38,000 trades jobs sitting unfilled every single month. And so we're an industry that desperately needs people, losing nearly half of the people who put their hand up. That should worry every single owner listening to this.
So why do they walk? Let's face it, hardly anybody asks. I push every client to run a proper exit interview when anyone leaves, and with apprentices it almost never happens. The lad hands his notice in, the owner has a grumble about young people these days, and the same thing happens again the next year. When you do ask, you hear the same answers every time. I was bored, I spent 8 months carrying radiators and sweeping out the van, nobody ever told me whether I was doing well or badly, and the fella I was supposed to be learning from never had a minute to teach me. None of those answers are about money, Ettan. Every one of them is about how the training is run day to day. And you can fix how the training is run.
Walk me through the mentorship side of that, because when it comes to the day-to-day, that's where I watched it fall over. The model this industry has always used is shadow the senior engineer. Follow him round, watch him work, pick it up as you go. And that worked when the senior bloke had slack in his day. But our engineers are flat out now. 7, 8 jobs a day through the winter. There's no time to stop and explain why you've routed a pipe the way you have. So the apprentice stands there holding a spanner, learning nothing, feeling like a spare part. The model didn't get worse. The workload broke it.
That's it, and this is where I bang my drum, because in my eyes, the answer starts with writing the training down. What I tell people is teach, don't just tell. When you show an apprentice a task, have him write the steps down while you demonstrate. That draft becomes a standard operating procedure. You review it, you sign it off, and the next time that task comes up, the document does the teaching instead of you. I wrote the systems handbook because of businesses drowning in exactly this. If you think you're the only one who can do things right, you're the bottleneck. Get it out of your head and onto paper, and the training stops living and dying with one busy bloke.
See, I'd push back on that, mate. Some of it, yes. Van checks, paperwork, how you leave a job tidy, commissioning forms. Write all of that down, 100%. But you can't write down what a good solder joint feels like when the heat's right. You can't put bending pipework by feel on a laminated sheet in the van. The stuff that makes someone a proper engineer, the craft, that lives in watching, doing, and being corrected by someone who knows. A folder of SOPs on its own gives the kid no feedback at all. He can follow every step to the letter and still have no idea whether his work was any good.
No, wait, let me put it this way, because I don't think we're arguing. The document gives you consistency, the mentor gives you judgment. You need both, and I challenge any owner who reckons a handbook on its own trains an engineer. But look at which half has collapsed. It's the mentor half, exactly like you said. The senior fella has no time, so the feedback never happens, so the lad gets bored and walks, and the owner's left holding a 50 grand hole. So the question worth asking is this: how do you get proper feedback back into the apprenticeship without pulling your best engineer off the tools 3 days a week? Because no small business can afford that either.
And that question is where my head has been for years, because we solved a version of it in maintenance already. At Help Me Fix, we put video between the engineer and the job. Experienced engineers, some of them too old or too injured to be out on the tools, guiding repairs remotely over live video. That platform ended up covering 250,000 homes, and it cut unnecessary call-outs by about half. The knowledge was always there. The van just couldn't be everywhere at once. And so I kept thinking, training has the same shape. The knowledge exists in your senior engineers. It just can't be in the right place at the right time.
Right, okay. And the same shape shows up in the accounts, believe it or not. Supervision time is a stepped cost. 5 engineers can carry maybe 1 apprentice properly between them. Try to take on 2 more without adding senior capacity, and the wheels come off. The teaching quality drops to nothing, the jobs slow down, and you're paying wages for a lad who's learning nout. Owners treat training as free because nobody sends an invoice for it. In my experience, it's the most expensive thing in the building the moment it goes wrong.
That's the maths of it, and I'm glad you've put numbers on it because owners listen to numbers. But before we get to fixes, there's a side of this you write about a lot, Aaron, and I want to give it some room. The lads themselves. Because a dropout number that big isn't just a business problem, is it? What does it look like from inside the apprenticeship?
It looks lonely is what it looks like. 74% of plumbers report work-related stress, anxiety or depression. Men in the skilled trades are 35% more likely to die by suicide than the general population. Those are the numbers I can't stop writing about. Now picture a 17-year-old on his first site, isolated, no feedback, doesn't know if he's any good and too proud to ask because the culture tells him to tough it out. A close mate of mine in the industry had a heart attack not long back and it stopped me in my tracks. When a trainee walks out, we file it under retention. Some of those lads are walking out to protect themselves. Let's face it, 4 years with no support takes a toll on a young person, and we shouldn't dress that up as character building.
Yeah, that lands, mate. I spend the odd day mentoring young people, helping them find their feet and work out what they're good at, and I jump at it every time. And what they ask me for, over and over, is for someone to look at their work properly and tell them the truth about it. That's the whole job of a mentor, being the person who takes their work seriously. And so if this industry can't put a person next to every trainee, we better find another way to give them that attention. Because the attention is the retention. I'm convinced of that.
Go on then, because you've been circling something since you brought up Help Me Fix. I can hear it in your voice. You've got a room full of flat out senior engineers with all the knowledge, trainees who are starving for feedback and no spare hours anywhere in the diary. What does the fix look like when the mentor can't physically be there?
So this is where all of it took me, and it's what we've built at TrainAR. Recorded POV sessions. The trainee wears a chest camera, and the job gets recorded from their point of view, start to finish. Their hands, their pipework, their decisions. And 2 things change straight away. First, the trainee can sit down that evening and watch their own job back, which is how you start spotting your own bad habits. And second, the trainer reviews the job without being on site. Your best engineer stays on the tools all day, then spends 20 minutes with a brew going through the footage and leaving feedback on the exact moment the flux went on wrong. Through Raft, we're taking that into employers and colleges, because one good mentor can suddenly cover 5 trainees properly instead of 1.
You've mailed it there, and I'll tell you exactly which line item lights up for me. Supervision time. The stepped costs we talked about, the one that stops owners taking on a second apprentice, shrinks. 20 minutes of review over a brew instead of half a day lost on site. And there's a bonus the accountant in me loves. Every reviewed job goes into your training library, so the footage becomes documentation. It's an SOP that films itself. That's working on your business, not just in it. And for once, the training and the systemizing are the same activity.
And you know what I keep coming back to, mate? If a chest camera had been running the day my foot went through that ceiling, that clip would have taught more first years than I ever did telling the story. My ceiling taught 1 apprentice at a time, whenever I remembered to tell it in the van. On film, the mistake becomes a lesson for every trainee who comes after. The mistakes still happen. That's how a craft gets learned. They just stop being wasted.
Mate, that clip would be the most watched training video in Watford. Every first year in the county would learn to check where the joists are before they kneel on a ceiling, and they'd learn it laughing at the boss. You're kidding yourself if you think a laminated sheet ever competes with that. That's the version of a mistake I can get behind as an accountant. Paid for once, and it pays you back forever.
Right, let's make this practical, because someone listening has a trainee in the van on Monday morning. Mine costs nothing to try. Pick 1 job this week and record it. A phone on a cheap chest mount will do to start. You don't need special kit. Then sit down with your trainee for 10 minutes and watch it back together. Ask them to talk you through their own hands. What were you doing there? Why did you route it that way? I promise you'll both learn something before the kettle's boiled. That's the feedback loop. Started this week for nothing.
And mine's for the diary and the spreadsheet. Book 30 minutes with your trainee, same slot every week, and treat it like a paying job, because it is one. Ask 3 things. What did you do this week? What would you do differently? And what have you not been shown yet that you want to learn? Write the answers down. Then go and cost your training properly. Put supervision hours into your numbers where you can see them, next to that 50 grand a year an empty van costs you. Once those 2 figures are side by side, the case for doing this properly makes itself. What gets measured gets managed.
That's a good place to leave it. Aaron, thank you, mate. This one matters to me more than most. Folks, you can find Aaron at Together We Count, and his books, The Quote Handbook and The Systems Handbook, are the best money a trades business owner will spend this year. For more on hiring, training and keeping your people, the TrainAR Academy has free guides on all of it. And if this episode rang true, send it to someone who's got a trainee in the van. See you next time on Van Talk.
Cheers, Ettan. Look after your numbers and look after your people. The two are a lot closer than most folk think. See you all soon.